I know I normally start these with the usual disclaimer, telling you to ensure that you're caught up with the series, but frankly, a more concerning matter worth updating you guys on deserves a little more precedent. Cherum, a fellow YouTuber, a major Monkey Ball Romhacks developer, among other projects, and a friend of mine, has recently been demonetized for largely unclear reasons, and with no evidence for the few claims YouTube continues to hold against him. YouTube, as wise as usual, has decided not to handle this privately, and have instead forced yet another innocent creator to speak publicly about this issue in order to get an even somewhat palatable response. Cherum's made his own video detailing his entire appeals process, a system that's a disaster in its own right, but the fact remains that Cherum has still been unable to restore his monetization as of this video. If you guys have a Twitter, using hashtag FreeCherum is probably the easiest way to help spread awareness on this one, and hopefully get YouTube to reinstate monetization on his channel. Thanks for listening, guys. Let's get on with the video. Welcome back to Monkey Ball Romhacks. This time, we've got 8 Romhacks to look at to complete the small packs category. Without further ado, let's get going. This one is more or less a test playground for a few fairly unfinished levels. Some are good, some are bad, and some are just messy. Give this one a look if you were particularly curious, I guess. Here we go. From here on, we're getting into the larger scale and more recent projects. Bad Boon Strikes Back is a great setup, especially compared to most of the previous offerings. Very polished and good-looking levels. The difficulty is on par with a normal beginner plus extra sweet, with levels having accordingly rudimentary challenges to match. Orbits and terrain have pretty cool variants, but that's probably the most noteworthy element level design-wise. Where I think this one really shines, though, is in its aesthetics. I'm a sucker for Sonic level themes in general, so the latter two definitely get a pass, but man, the way the World 1 design changes for a time of day effect really does look great. This one is still in development, but nonetheless, I'd recommend giving this one a go, even in its current state if you're interested. Potassium Edition is particularly interesting in the pantheon of brutal Monkey Ball level packs. At first glance, they really don't seem like they'd be that difficult at all. Fend in particular encapsulates this remarkably well in terms of being just so unassuming, yet so ridiculously hard. For that, I definitely respect this one, but it's still pretty hard to recommend to those who aren't interested in crazy difficult stages. Here we have Monkey Ball 651's little brother, I guess. It's a pretty interesting set of 20 experimental levels. I prefer the first 10 for their comparative polish, but honestly, the extra batch has some more interesting gimmicks on display. Overall, it's worth a play, but keep in mind that these stages vary wildly in both difficulty and polish, so just keep that in mind. Again, not entirely sure what happened to the amusement park here, but if I had to guess, it was similar to the build error I experienced with Hyper. A Lion 8 Mies pack is yet another case of a solid, but admittedly unexceptional set of levels with a handful of highlights. To be clear, I'm not implying that any of these hacks are bad. I just have very little to say besides, it's fine and it works, and to check it out if you like what you see. Super Alex Ball is essentially just an earlier version of Monkey Ball, a later Bites hack, and so will be looked at more during the discussion of Monkey Ball 1 and 2. For now, all I'll say is that polish like this was pretty impressive and rare at the time, so take from that what you will. Now we have Re-Encore, not to be confused with regular Encore, a separate project that does not contain its own levels. Even for Re-Encore though, and even by the creator's own admission, the focus on this one really isn't its level design, but rather its reskin of level themes, most of which can be experienced in Encore already. Except for Advanced for some reason. This means if you're going to try this one out, just do Advanced. We start with a pretty great change to Sky High that, with one color change, magically becomes Sonic Unleashed Apoptos. It's honestly kind of crazy how much the atmosphere changes with just one major tweak aesthetically, but somehow it just works. The other two level themes aren't quite as strong though. I admire the attempt to make the ice level the lava level, but the snowflakes couldn't exactly be removed, I guess, so we end up with some weird artifacts. The last one doesn't have that problem though, so it's perfectly fine besides its level design. Finally, we have Super Hekamecha, which includes a small handful of beginner and extra stages, most of which appear to be remixes of other levels, and thanks to that, I'm just going to be focusing on advanced for now. Heka Mecha, much like the majority of the ROM hacks we've looked at previously, achieves a very solid quality throughout its entire run, although unlike many of the past few, does manage to hold an identity of its own. Stages like Scarf and Roram not only have cool gimmicks and are fun to play, but now I also somewhat get an idea of the creator's style for design, something I've only occasionally experienced in the prior hacks I've discussed. The stage themes are really solid too, and further allow for this hack to gain an individual identity. I don't love every stage here, don't get me wrong, but I can say, with no reservations, that I can recommend this one. Well, that's the largest category of ROM hacks down. I know I was extremely brief with most of these releases, but there's two primary factors that cause that. One,
they're short.
And two, most of these are very early in development and or will be updated in the future. I'll look at them more when that happens, but for now, that's all of them. It's worth noting that these ROM hacks also had to deal with the nearly insurmountable challenge of showcasing one's unique style in a set of, at most, 30 levels. Even as someone who hasn't attempted it, I can see how taxing that can be, especially for a new creator. It would probably drive me to perfectionism personally. So, regardless of my comments on any of these ROM hacks, I have a great deal of respect for these creators and their ability to make a set of levels at all. Nonetheless, I feel compelled to offer my recommendations for the small ROM hacks you should check out, assuming you're new to the ROM hacking scene. The Mini Golf Pack, the latest Level Jams Pack, Bad Boon Strikes Back, and Heka Mecha are all pretty great and easy to recommend due to the widely available ISOs for all of them. Pinto Beans TBD Pack, Monkeys Need Hard Levels to Breathe 2, and Potassium Edition can also be recommended with their respective provisos. Everything else had most of their best levels ported to the 2020 Community Pack, which is also a perfectly functional place to start if you're new to Monkey Ball ROM hacking. Overall though, that's it for small level packs.